Hello, everybody. I'd like to begin our information session today by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet. For me, that's the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and I pay my respects to elders past and present. I also acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands from which you all may be joining us today. And from the look of the attendee list, we have people from all over the country, New Zealand and internationally. So thank you so much for coming along. So welcome and thank you for being part of this information session for the Sustainability Reporting Community of Practice. It's a new initiative developed by the UN Global Compact Network Australia in partnership with the ASX and Chartered Accountants Australia and New Zealand. While we hear more from our partners shortly, I wanted to express our sincere appreciation for their involvement in this project. We're really excited around this partnership. Now, for those of you who don't know us, the UN Global Compact Network is the world's largest corporate sustainability network. And in Australia, we work with around 380 businesses who are members of ours across all industry sectors and all levels of sustainability and maturity. And this sustainability reporting community is a direct result of requests from our members for us to provide them with a platform for learning and connection. So we officially launched the Sustainability Reporting Community of Practice last week with a ring the bell ceremony at the iconic ASX Exchange Square in Sydney during the official visit of Simon Steele, the Executive Secretary of the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, otherwise known as the UNFCCC. Following the launch, we held an executive roundtable with Mr. Steele, which reinforced the importance of Australia seizing the opportunity to further our climate ambitions through the alignment of business goals and policy direction. The discussion made clear that the Australian private sector strongly supports action on climate goals and has a strong appetite to accelerate progress. Investor interest in climate-aligned opportunities is only increasing, and clear policy direction is critical for long-term planning and investor confidence, including through the nationally determined contributions, or NDCs as they're known, which are the climate action plans that countries submit under the Paris Agreement, with Australia's NDC due in September. And I'm sure you've been reading many articles about that in the press. The conversations at our in-person launch last week reflected the significant shifts underway in Australia's sustainability landscape. And with the current round of NDCs due in September, the potential for COP31 to be hosted in Adelaide next year, and with the rollout of the Australian Reporting Sustainability Standards, which is why we're all here today, there's an ever-growing expectation for transparency, integrity, and impact from our business. So it is on this backdrop that we've launched the Sustainability Reporting Community of Practice in partnership with the ASX and CAANZ, a new joint initiative to support professionals across industries as you aim to navigate the rapidly evolving regulatory landscape, ensuring that Australian businesses are equipped not only to meet these new regulatory requirements, but to move beyond compliance to confidently report and communicate corporate sustainability and climate disclosures. You'll hear more from our partners shortly on the value that they bring to this initiative. But for now, thank you once again for being here, for your commitment to advancing responsible business in Australia and beyond. And I'll now invite Jeremy Williams to provide an overview of the Sustainability Reporting Community of Practice.
Thank you, Kate, and thank you again to everyone who has joined our stream this afternoon. My name is Jeremy Williams, and I'm an analyst in the Environment and Climate Change workstream here at the UN Global Compact Network Australia. Clear, reliable, and accurate reporting acts as a critical lever in providing businesses, investors, governments, and other stakeholders the transparency necessary to best understand the associated risks and opportunities in this rapidly evolving climate. For this reason, we are launching the Sustainability Reporting Community of Practice with our partners ASX and Chartered Accountants Australia and New Zealand to provide an online, scalable space that equips Australian businesses with the knowledge, tools, and professional networks required to enhance their sustainability reporting capabilities. At the UNGCNA, our communities of practice, or COPs, are dedicated spaces where our participating organisations can connect and exchange insights on some of the most pressing sustainability challenges facing the Australian private sector. To help Australian businesses navigate new developments and share learnings in a safe space, we also host a modern slavery community of practice that we call the SRCoP. This community allows participants to connect with each other, fostering an environment for learning and discussion on the opportunities and challenges facing Australian businesses in relation to the identification, management, and communication of modern slavery risks. Additionally, over the past 18 months, we worked with ASX 30s and other leading reporting entities to work through salient issues for first reporters in our Advanced Climate Reporters community of practice. In doing so, we address issues like greenwashing and director liability, Scope 3 and supplier relationships, integrating financials into scenario analysis, and capacity building for reporting on nature alongside climate reporting efforts. Until now, our communities of practice have lived through calendar invitations and emails. However, for the SRCoP, we have built an online platform with Kahoot Learning, which offers further engagement opportunities through a discussion forum, an extensive resource library that will continually update, as well as additional courses available for purchase to come in the future. Acknowledging the significance of the rollout of the ASBS2 standards, the first stream of the SRCoP is climate, and will be focused on different themes related to climate-related financial disclosure. Each month, live webinars will rotate between spotlight sessions, which are designed to provide deeper technical insights through longer form presentations delivered by subject matter experts, industry leaders, and regulators. Peer learning sessions, which are designed to foster open dialogue, practical insights, and peer-to-peer exchange. These sessions will start with short expert presentations, followed by breakout discussions where participants can share experiences, ask questions, and explore key challenges and opportunities in a supportive, collaborative space. And finally, we'll have open office hours, which are informal drop-in sessions that offer a flexible space for participants to freely ask questions, share insights, and engage in open dialogue with peers and experts on recent sustainability reporting themes. Each session focuses on topics driven by community feedback and are all designed to foster collaboration and knowledge sharing. In the future, we'll be rolling out additional streams related to reporting on nature and social-related impacts, risks, and opportunities, with the intention of ultimately enhancing all aspects of sustainability reporting. UNGCNA participants are eligible to register for 2 complimentary places in the SRCoP, with CAANZ members or ASX listed entities eligible for a discounted annual rate. For more details, please refer to our website or through the QR code on your screen. I'll now hand it over to UNGCNA Senior Coordinator, Julia Bourke, to do a demonstration and walkthrough of the SRCoP platform.
Thank you, Jeremy. And it is my pleasure to be able to give you a demonstration of our SRCoP platform that we've built with Kahoot Learning to have a virtual space for this community to live. We hope that this new format will provide a place for members to connect between calls and workshops together through discussion forums and the utilisation of the curated resource library. I'll just bring up my screen now so that you can all see the platform. All right. So present on my screen now is the community dashboard, and I'll be going through each of the modules present to give a brief overview of what they include. And if you have any questions as we go along, a reminder to use the Q&A function on Zoom, and we will address them later in our dedicated Q&A time. So starting from the top left, you'll see our welcome video from Kate, as well as a slideshow of highlights that will be updated occasionally to display the newest content on the platform. You can also see our community events list here, which houses the details of all our upcoming live sessions. When clicked on, such as the information session we're in right now, you'll be able to see additional details about each of the calls, as well as the button to join the call directly through the platform. Returning to the home screen, you'll next see our welcome module. This is the first place we encourage all members to go to discover how the community works, as well as get to know your fellow community members. Inside this module, we've set up a couple of orientation activities. So please jump in there and introduce yourselves for those in the community to start to share some challenges or questions that have brought you to the platform. And you can see some of our team have already jumped in here. So those that are already part of the community, we really encourage you to get in and get involved as well. Now, the next module is our notice board panel. Now, this is a facilitator-only forum where the UNGCNA team will post latest news, critical announcements in the world of sustainability reporting. And we'll also use this area to signal any key updates on the platform, such as upload of new resources, information about any upcoming live sessions, or where there's new discussion forums or areas that you can also collaborate on the platform. Next, we have the Connect module, which is the place where you can connect with your fellow SRCoP members, so very appropriately named. This area will evolve over time to tailor to more targeted discussions as we understand what participants need. But at the outset, this is a place where we first encourage you to share your work in action through this first Connect forum, as well as signal future topics that you'd like to see covered in our initial sessions, part of the community of practice. So you can do that by taking part in this posted activity here. This Ask the Community discussion forum also serves as an open area where members can start their own discussion topics and seek insights from other community members to share any stories of success or challenges. Back to the home screen, we've next got the events module, which it also mirrors the content featured in the community events timeline. So this is a place where you can find more detail on the session types in the community of practice that Jeremy has just run through, as well as any more specific information about each of the upcoming sections. This is where you'll also be able to find our dedicated post-event discussion forums, which are locked right now because we haven't finished any of our first events. But after this information session is done, this module will then become unlocked for members to discuss any learnings or follow-up questions they have after this information session, as well as other events that we have coming up this year. Now, finally, we have the resources module, which is the last element on this homepage. This is a place where you can find curated resources to help support you navigate the world of sustainability reporting that is ever evolving. And this area will be regularly updated to ensure that we have the latest guidance and updates all in one place. So the Foundations module includes essential resources, regularly updated and meeting evolving standards and best practices, as you can see. And the climate module here aligns with our first content-focused stream that Jeremy mentioned earlier. Finally, we also have our Chartered Accountants Australia and New Zealand module, which has been loaded with resources provided by our partner Chartered Accountants, and as well as their international networks. We'll take a closer look at the climate module now to see how these resources are organised. So we've broken down these categories into regulatory frameworks, regulatory guidance, standard setter guidance, industry materials, as well as third-party resources. And we encourage those already in the community to jump in and explore these deeper after this information session. Back to the community homepage, you can also see this info and support tab. This is just a place where you can relearn the overview of the SRCoP, learn a bit more about the partner organisations and what we do, as well as the legalities of terms and conditions and some accessibility information here as well. So all of the logistics and info in this section. And lastly, we have the SRCoP members section where you can actually see who is part of the community and who is in the room. So the facilitators up here, our UNGCNA team are highlighted, and then all other community members are visible in this area as well. So thank you everyone, and especially to the Kahoot Learning team for supporting us to build such an exciting platform. I can't wait to see more of you in there and to start connecting with more of the members over time. If you have any questions specific to the platform, please make sure to put them in the Q&A function and we can address them towards the end of this call. But for now, I'd like to hand over to Evan Center, who will be facilitating a panel discussion with our partner organisations. Thanks, Evan.
All right. Good afternoon, and thanks, Julia, for that fantastic demo. Right now, I'm excited to host a short conversation with three exceptional leaders who are shaping the future of corporate sustainability, governance, and market resilience. Let's begin by introducing our panelists. We have James Posnett, General Manager, Listings at the Australian Securities Exchange. With over 20 years of international experience in capital markets, James has played a pivotal role in developing ASX's listings and capital markets business. His incredible leadership and experience spans a wide range of sectors, from technology and healthcare to financials and resources. We also have Karen McWilliams, FCA. She is a Sustainability and Business Reform Leader at Chartered Accountants Australia and New Zealand, or CAANZ. She leads advocacy on climate change and sustainability-related business reform. Karen holds extensive advisory and corporate experience and is also a member of the Australian Government's Nature Finance Council. We also have Kate Dundas, who you have already heard from. She is the Executive Director of the UN Global Compact Network Australia, where she leads national efforts to advance responsible business practices aligned with the UN's global sustainability agenda. Kate brings deep expertise in sustainability, strategic foresight, and ethical leadership. Today's conversation explores the evolving role of sustainability reporting with specific attention on climate. We'll hear how each organization is leveraging its expertise to support meaningful sustainability outcomes and build capacity across the business community. We'll also discuss how transparency and accountability are becoming central to business, resilience, and long-term value creation. And furthermore, we'll explore how reporting frameworks are driving climate action, mitigating risk, enabling informed decision-making, and aligning corporate strategies with global climate goals. Together, these insights will help us better understand how sustainability reporting is evolving from a compliance exercise into a strategic tool for transformation. So let's dive in. I'll start with James. James, last week at your fantastic ASX headquarters, we heard you and FCCC Executive Secretary Simon Steele espouse a message of opportunity, especially for businesses and investors through climate reporting efforts. What is the value of the SRCoP for ASX members, and what strengths do you feel that ASX brings to this partnership?
Oh, look, thank you, Evan, and it's great to be with you all today. Look, I think first of all, I would characterize ASX as, having the market connectivity and reach to make a difference here. We're Australia's premier market for premier stock exchange. We've got a deep and liquid market with over 2,000 listed entities, over 70 industries. So that reach is quite wide ranging. But more importantly, I think, we've set the standards of disclosure and transparency as a stock market for over 100 years in this country. And that in turn leads to investor confidence. So, so number one, that connectivity and reach, I think, is a really important point, in terms of the partnership. And I think, number two would be, I would sort of characterize it as, supporting our listed companies and building capacity. It's really important for companies to have the tools, best practices, and insights to meet the emerging sustainability standards. That's a really, really important point, and we want to try and make sure our listed companies have those things to be able to meet those standards appropriately. Certainly Group 1, of course, is coming first in terms of the companies that will have the mandatory reporting. It may be that, the Group 2 and Group 3 reporters have less resource to be able to actually meet those standards. And, having the extra help is really important, I would say. This is where the partnership can be really, really effective. The other aspect there is, of course, Group 1 could trailblaze. And so there'll be learnings from that first iteration of Group 1 reporting. And then that leads me to my third point, which is data and disclosure expertise. So, of course, we've had the frameworks as a stock exchange in terms of reporting, whether it, be financial or continuous disclosure reporting. We've got those frameworks in place and have been using those, of course, and enforcing those rules and disclosure requirements and standards for many years. You'll know that in our corporate governance and principles, we already make reference to, for example, environmental risks. So a number of companies are already addressing that voluntarily. And indeed, the TCFD framework is being used by a number of ASX 200 companies already. And indeed, we are ourselves a reporter. We're in this together. ASX is listed as well. We've been reporting to the TCFD framework since FY21, which is, it's a helpful sort of lead in, but we will be in Group 1. We will be there alongside you as well. So, hopefully, Evan, that gives you some insight into our thinking about the partnership.
Yeah, very much do as I do as well as do what I say, right? So, yeah, thanks for that. In terms of supporting trailblazing private sector efforts and building that capacity. Kate, would you like to elaborate on where you see this partnership with the UNGCNA providing value to its membership, and especially in terms of increasing that capacity within sustainability teams and the broader parts of the business as well?
Yeah, thanks, Evan. So as you all may be aware, we've got a very diverse membership at the Global Compact across Group 1, 2 and 3 reporters, along with many businesses who are in the supply chain of these larger companies. So we've had the great pleasure of talking to our businesses over the last couple of years about what it is they're looking for and what assistance they might need when mandatory reporting starts this year. So there's a couple of things I think we can do. Number one is that we can bring global expertise in climate, nature, business, but also in human rights and anti-bribery and corruption. So we can connect the dots beyond climate. And I think we're echoing the government sentiment that reporting is climate first, but not climate only. So we look forward to bringing in more information on nature and social reporting as it evolves. Also, our businesses have been asking us to create this community. So I think some of the things we've learned from our modern slavery community of practice is that peer-to-peer learning is really valuable. So learning from others, the issues that you're having, are always not the only one. So we designed this platform so that you can really look for practical, actionable advice. You can, and I noticed we had a note in the chat, the Q&A about competition policy. We're very aware of that. We have our own competition policy, and we will get you to sign some terms and conditions when you sign up to the platform. But we are looking to navigate competition policy while giving you the ability for peer-to-peer learning. It's entirely possible. And the other great thing that we can do that Karen's going to talk a little bit more about is to bring different elements of the business into the community. We really want to bring sustainability together with finance and together with risk and the other functions within the business that make sustainability reporting evolve from a compliance exercise into a transformational exercise.
All right, thank you for that, Kate. So Karen, it looks like we're turning to you. Moving on with that, your members are particularly impacted. As we move to other parts of the business, as we bring together sustainability throughout the core of business operations and strategy, what is the value of this community of practice for your incredible chartered accountants?
Great, thanks, Evan. And yeah, real pleasure to be here. And I guess, look, it's been said, and I think by many people, including the ASIC commissioner, but ASIC chair, so I should say, what we're looking at here with the mandatory climate disclosures regime is one of the most significant changes that we've seen to corporate reporting in a generation. And I guess accountants and the accounting profession are very engaged very closely in the corporate reporting system within a business, the external reporting regime and the assurance of that. So I think as Kate's indicated, I guess this partnership's a way to bring those accounting and finance professionals in organisations together with the other professionals who are working across this space, sustainability, risk, legal, procurement, all coming together to share their expertise, but allowing them to, I guess, learn from those different perspectives across through that community. So I guess it's a way to bring together some of those different professionals, but who are all working towards the same goal of supporting their organisations with the reporting. And I guess accountants do bring a particular lens and their background and their skills and expertise, but also looking at how they can collaborate more broadly across, because we certainly are very much aware that when it comes to doing this, particularly the external reporting element, but also more broadly looking at it, I guess, embedded through a business, it's no single person or single profession's role here. It's actually going to take a whole team, and I think that's where the community and I guess the different partners involved in this can really add value, because we all bring different perspectives to that. And I think that's the key solution to a lot of this is actually collaboration.
Yeah, exactly. In terms of collaboration and that whole team effort, as a follow-up, what do you see as the role of sustainability reporting and meeting the expectations of your members at Chartered Accountants ANZ, those stakeholders that are asking for, or that are having increased expectations and really taking a deep dive into those regulatory requirements?
Yeah, so I guess if we think back to why do we have mandatory sustainability reporting and climate disclosures first, the real driver for that has been investors globally who have been really pushing and saying, we want investment grade information on these other, I guess, risks and opportunities in the sustainability space. We want it to be reliable, robust, consistent, comparable, so that we can use it to inform our decision making as investors. And I guess that's the driver for that. And if you think about it from a perspective, I guess, and it comes back to that sort of role around accountants, our expertise is there is a fundamental set of expertise in corporate reporting and assurance, obviously built up in the financial space, but easily transferable across into this broader piece. And so it's bringing those skills and expertise about, again, robust, reliable information for decision making, both within a business, but also externally. And obviously, this isn't just about providing that information externally. That's been the driving force for this mandatory reporting in external space. But actually, if we're actually going to see any action and change, businesses are going to need to use that information within their own organization as well to inform their decision making. And I guess we see it with, if you think about how finance information is used within an organization, we're just giving the same sort of robust and rigorous aspect to it, to actually really try to build, and as you say, incorporate into the strategy, incorporate into budgeting and forecasting and transition planning. All of these things need to be aligned. It's no good having sort of a transition plan that has no connection to the strategy or the budget or forecast. It's not funded. How is it going to come? So we've actually got to bring all of these professions together and bring all of these business processes together and align them. So I guess, the driver for this has been that external reporting, but I think part of the value is going to be actually informing that internal decision making with better and more robust and reliable information.
Absolutely. Looking at that internal and external stakeholder engagement, Karen, you mentioned investors. James, I'm going to go ahead and bring it over to you. What about the ASX in terms of robust, reliable information, bringing in investors, looking at investor questions, inquiries, expectations around these regulatory requirements? What do you see the value of ASX and what they're bringing to the table there is?
Well, certainly, I mean, we can sort of give you the feedback that corresponds with what Karen was saying there. I mean, clearly investors are looking for this. So it's not just about your mandatory reporting as a rule, notwithstanding that's really important. So in terms of the partnership, we want to make sure that ASX listed companies are future fit and can actually abide by the rules, as it were. But it has good usefulness beyond that because investors are demanding it. And by the way, this mandatory climate reporting is for unlisted companies as well as listed companies. It's all companies that fit the size and other criteria. So, and we see that in the new listing candidates we speak to as well that are also thinking about that. They may not be listed now, but whether they list or not, they still need to be compliant over time. It's assuming they fall part of Group 1, 2, or 3. So. So that's really important, but both private and public investors are taking this seriously, and it does inform their investment decision. The other aspect of this is, and Karen touched on this as well, the risk management tools, because it goes to sort of reputational, environmental and governance challenges as well. So it has usefulness beyond just the fact that you're being asked to report this in a mandatory way.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, James. Now, moving on to our final question here, just talking a little bit about the role of sustainability reporting and broader decarbonization efforts. Karen, I'll bring it back to you. I've often thought that accountants are changing the world, but they can't act alone. I remember chuckling at, I believe it was a Chartered Accountants ANZ promo video a couple of years ago where it showed accountants as superheroes, which with the recent changes seems pointedly accurate. So how can sustainability reporting feed into our broader decarbonization efforts? How are Chartered Accountants ANZ members leading this charge or supporting whole of business in this process?
Yeah, thanks, Evan. And I feel like I sort of half answered this one in the earlier point, but I think what we're sort of really seeing here, I guess, with climate action and taking it forward, I think obviously there's the policy environment that matters to business around sort of certainty to enable investment. But I guess what we are seeing, and it's starting to come through, is it comes back to that information sharing. It comes back to data for informed decision making. I had I was on a panel recently, or moderating a panel, and one of the CFOs there was sort of sharing about how decisions now, she's not just making a decision around fuel purchase, around the cheapest or the price, but also looking at the emissions associated with that fuel purchase. So I guess when you look at where those finance functions are involved in the decision making within business, part of that is about how do we bring some of these broader considerations into that. As I mentioned, you know, we're looking at a transition plan, but we've got to build that into the strategy and build that into the budgeting and forecasting process, so these things are funded, so that these changes are incorporated into how the business operates. We can't be running, I guess, these two sort of processes in isolation from each other. So I think those are becoming sort of more and more important, because we want to have the right decisions that are made about decarbonisation projects, that businesses are going to be taking and making those decisions, and we've got to build the finance aspect in alongside the decarbonisation. In the same way, we're not just going to make a decision that just says, well, it doesn't matter how much we spend, we'll do this decarbonisation project. No business says that. They're actually going to be looking and saying, okay, what's the cost benefit around each of these different decisions, and how do we bring in, as we're sort of thinking about it now, more this integrated decision making, thinking about how do we bring these other aspects into the business decision making process, so that we aren't just making a decision based on the finance or a decision based on the sort of decarbonisation, but actually weaving those in together. And of course, the other aspect we mustn't forget is the just transition and the social aspects. Nature, we've got to actually start to think about all of these aspects. And I guess it's starting to, so I do see that the role of accountants can help bring that through. Look, there's no easy answers, as we know, to a lot of this. There is always going to be trade-offs, but actually starting to build these aspects into the decision-making process. And obviously, for our members, some of them, this is going to be new. We've got to build their knowledge and skills base in some of these areas, and encourage them as to how they can work across with these other teams, understand this new language of transition plans, scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions, and those kind of aspects. Some of those, scenario analysis, some of it's new. Some of it's new to a lot of businesses who are coming on board. And so we are looking at how we can sort of build that, but actually build it into that business process that a lot of businesses are more familiar with, and the finance function.
Thanks for that, Karen. Real quickly, James and Kate, I just want to touch on this and leave a few minutes for discussion at the end. James, what do you want your ASX listed corporates to know about how to leverage their own sustainability reporting efforts for broader impact?
Yeah, look, I think just be part of the partnership, be part of this initiative. I think is extremely valuable, and really, lean into it. We as an exchange are also here to support. So, I think that's another really important point to make. But ultimately, the bigger picture is, why are we doing this? It's kind of like we're trying to get towards net zero and satisfy net zero commitments. And emissions reductions is the sort of bigger picture. I think we're all aware of that. But I think, Evan, you shared with me or reminded me of a great quote that Simon Steele gave in his speech. Transparency is not just about compliance anymore, it's about competitiveness. Because if climate risk is everywhere, then climate opportunity is there too. I think that really, resonated with me, and I think it's a great thing to point out in the sense that, this does create opportunity, whether it be, low carbon solutions, clean tech, essentially getting to becoming transition ready as a business over time, because this is going to be part of this is just going to be regular reporting eventually. Sure, we've got this transition phase, and yes, that will require some work. But ultimately, we'll look back in years to come, and this is just going to be standard reporting over time.
Absolutely, absolutely, James. Kate, wrapping up before we dive into a few of these questions about how we can engage our leadership better, and some other questions about the standard. What about the UNGCNA? How can our sustainability reporting efforts prove transformative?
Yeah, I think what we want this community to do is leverage the potential for transformation, but also be extremely practical. So I noticed one of the questions in the chat was asking, well, how do we convince our execs to be part of this community? And one of the answers I would give is that climate reporting, you have to do it. It's in the Corporations Act. If you're in one of the group 1, 2, or 3 companies, it's coming. So be part of the community to access the knowledge and networks to make this easier and more effective. And hopefully, so actually I might just share some of the things we learned from the advanced climate reporters quickly to give you some examples of the topics that we'll probably touch on. So we've been running this advanced climate reporters with our ASX 20 companies over the last couple of years. And some of the things that we learned is that reporting must be owned across the business, not just by sustainability teams. So leading companies are building these cross-functional teams with finance, legal, procurement, and IT. And actually that makes it much easier to get in front of the execs if it's owned by the whole business. Scope 3 and supplier engagement are critical, but they're also really hard. So I'm sure a lot of you are grappling with emissions that sit outside of your direct control. We will be delving into Scope 3 emissions in the community as we go forward. Scenario analysis should shape strategy, not just tick the box. So we know that some of our organizations are using scenarios to inform investment decisions and to stress test financial plans to make them more prepared for disruption. Again, that's a good way to get that in front of your execs, in front of finance, and ultimately in front of the board who will be signing this off. And legal exposure is real and it's growing. Greenwashing and enforcement is ramping up. Companies are mitigating risk by involving legal advisors earlier. This is really important practical stuff that we'll be delving into. So hopefully there's the mix of both the practical realities and then getting all of that right so that we can move towards ambition and towards transformation.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Kate. Karen or James, would either of you like to weigh in on how we get leadership in the room and buy-in? Because, it is so much more than, an ideological exercise. This is very much something that, as James said, will become standard. What are your quick thoughts on getting that leadership buy-in quickly?
Look, it can be challenging, and I think there's no doubt that the Australian political environment, and I know we've got people from New Zealand here as well, and it's been a challenge, and we've seen what's happening in Europe and US, and there's been this sense that we just, this might go away. I think someone asked a question about that. In Australia, the reality is it's embedded in the Corporations Act. You can't just change that. It is mandatory, as Kate said. Now, that doesn't necessarily get you the sort of trigger in terms of bringing it internally to an organization, but mandatory requirements do get the attention of the board. We know that a number of the sort of, that director community, this is something they are going to have to do. So that does mean there's a start. And yes, this goes beyond compliance, there's no doubt about that. But often compliance can be the first step, and that's why this has been made mandatory. Those who want to lead and do it voluntarily are already in that space. This is about bringing everyone else up to a minimum level. And I think that, mandatory Corporations Act is a really good way to get everyone started who doesn't want to do it. And obviously you need the resourcing to make sure you can be compliant. Then once you've done that, then you can build internally to really increase that value, and hopefully might even be able to do that at the same time. But certainly I think to get executive buy-in, if they aren't really engaging, then that's clearly a way to do it.
Thanks, Karen. James, did you have anything to add there?
I think that's right. I mean, risk, I touched on earlier, risk management tool, that's, so important today. And, like I said, it goes to sort of reputation and environmental and governance ultimately, and to get attention of leadership if you need to, that's a starting point. But it's also using it in a positive way as well. There are probably aspects where you can use that reporting, for positive opportunities. Not just about, as I said, mandatory reporting.
Awesome. Thanks for that, James. I see a few quick answers, so I'll just fire off. Can a non-ASX listed company join? Absolutely. We would love to have you. If you're in that catchment, please join us. Just check out the link on there. If you are not a UN Global Compact Network Australia participant, and you are not ASX listed and you're not a chartered accountant, there are some different parameters, but we can walk you through it in the link. So more the merrier. We would absolutely love to have you in. I see other questions about resourcing and some about joining with our New Zealand participants. The more the merrier, in my opinion. But we've got a lot of good things going on here. In terms of finding those resources, I think I'll look at JW's question. Where can one find standards used across all organizations for measuring climate and ESG related finances? Are they international? What are your thoughts, Karen?
I guess the standards that companies are complying, yes, it is the international standards. So the ISSB, International Sustainability Standards Board, they've issued standards. One of them, S2, is climate-related disclosures. That is the standard that the AASB locally have adopted and issued. I think the question did sort of go on and then ask a bit about the financial effects component. Now, that is obviously something within the standard. This is where I guess we're starting to see guidance come out around how you might do that, and I guess that's one of the areas that we expect the community of practice. It's one of those aspects around the application of the standards that everyone's trying to work through. There are no sort of, I guess, clear information out there on how you would approach that. We're starting to see guidance come. The ISSB themselves globally have put out some guidance, and also, in fact, in New Zealand, the XRB have put out some guidance very recently on anticipated financial effects, which I think you might find in the website under the CAANZ guidance as well. So I think that there is starting to come information out there, but it is evolving. As you know, Australia is one of the first countries to adopt those international standards, so we are I guess piloting it through. We're going to experience it for the first time, all of those questions, and that's why I guess the community is so incredibly valuable, because part of this is going to be bringing organisations together to share their different approaches and learn from each other, because a lot of organisations are genuinely starting with pretty much a blank sheet of paper, apart from perhaps some of the TCFD that might have been done by some of the larger companies. So it does mean it's going to be sort of a challenge to work through. So I guess for some of this, it's worth knowing that there aren't answers to everything about how everything needs to be done at the moment, and it is a work in progress, and that's the role of the community really as well.
Absolutely. We're going to wrap this up, but I just have a couple quick questions. I saw one about resourcing, and I understand that a lot of our businesses are very resource constrained. And this is something that we really hope that we can support with within this sustainability reporting community of practice. So if you do have resource constraints, tap in, see how we can engage you better. It's something I'd love to have a longer conversation on. And then another question for a final question, and I'll pose it to whoever would like to answer from the panel. How robustly do you think these reporting mechanisms are set up against interference from politics? Will they continue regardless of who's in power? James mentioned that the standard will essentially become standard, right? Or has become. So will this continue? What are your thoughts?
Well, as Karen mentioned earlier, it sits now within the Corporations Act. We have a Labour government, at least in Australia, who've been voted in with a very significant majority. So I think it's safe to say that Australia, at least in Australia, the reporting is here to stay for the long term. It's difficult to change legislation once it's put through.
Absolutely. From my understanding, ASIC reads our sustainability reports. It is very much here to stay. As we go through the conversations and have a play in this messy space, I want to thank everyone for attending and engaging. I'm sorry that we did not get to all of our questions. I want to hand it over to Kate to close us out. And then if there's anything else that we can support with, please get in contact with me. Please get in contact with us. We would love to help you out. Join this community. We're here to do some good things. Kate.
We are here to do some good things. And the other thing to mention about this community is it's not completely designed. It will evolve with the requirements and needs of the participants. So we're here to make it super useful and valuable for the work that you're doing. It's going to be really interactive. We're going to build the content around what you really want to see. So hopefully it will evolve to be a problem-solving, networking extravaganza that will be extremely practical for your day-to-day work, that you'll meet a load of great people online and hopefully create some new networks and connections, and then move towards that transformation of the business. Thank you all for your questions. We will look to create some FAQs from the questions that are coming up in the chat, get them up on our website or potentially in the email after this. Thank you once again for your time and engagement. We really would love for you to join us. The QR code is in front of you, and we will follow up with you all with an email with some more information in it. But hopefully we can continue this conversation, and thank you so much for your time.